Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Nurse Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. The Caleb Love saga might officially be at its end, unless he decides to go somewhere else after this. But Caleb Love has gone to the Arizona Wildcats. That is where he's transferring to. I'm going to go over whether I think Caleb Love can be a good addition for the Arizona Wildcats next season in their quest to win the Pac-12 next year. And I'm going to also go over whether I think that Caleb Love is finally going to be at his last stop in college basketball. Now, Caleb Love is a guy that is an enigma. People have talked about him forever, and he is just creating major storylines in college basketball. And we're almost in June. The transfer portal has changed college basketball forever because after the season ended, no one really talked about college basketball. But again, 2 months after the season has ended, and we're still talking about major additions. And Caleb Love, he already made his move earlier this offseason. He left the North Carolina Tar Heels. After transferring from there, he committed to the Michigan Wolverines. It looked like he was going to be playing for Juwan Howard in the Big Ten next season, but he decided to decommit, and there's a lot of speculation and rumors about why he decommitted from Michigan. Some people think that it's academic. Some people even think it's because Michigan wasn't looking too good for next season. Both of those are very probable scenarios. But Caleb Love, he decommitted from Michigan regardless, so he's already made the headlines several times this offseason after he transferred from North Carolina, then went to Michigan, then decommitted from Michigan, and now he's landed on his feet with the Arizona Wildcats. And this is a big addition for Arizona because of the fact that they landed Caleb Love over the Gonzaga Bulldogs and the Texas Longhorns. Two teams that could have used Caleb Love just as much as Arizona. And they probably were two teams that would have been great fits for Caleb Love as well because Texas, they're losing a lot of guard depth to graduation and some players transferred out. So Texas could have used a guard like Caleb Love next season. And they had a lot to sell in the Big 12. Texas is trying to build and continue to be one of the best teams in the Big 12. So that would have been a good move for Caleb Love. Gonzaga, yes, they're not in a major conference, but still, Gonzaga is a program that people pay attention to. And they're in the West Coast Conference in a league where Caleb Love probably could have dominated and showed NBA scouts that he is an improving player and that he's going to get better at his efficiency. So maybe Gonzaga would have been a good stop for him. And Ryan Nembhard transferred to Gonzaga, and he is a really good point guard. Texas would have had Max Amos. So both those guys could have facilitated to Caleb Love. But he chose the Arizona Wildcats, and Tommy Lloyd, who has done a fantastic job in this offseason of bringing in talent. He knew that he was going to have to do that because Courtney Ramey is gone, because Cedric Henderson's gone. Azuolas Tubelis, it's looking like he's going to stay in the NBA draft. I'm still not 100% sure if he's gone, but if Azuolas Tubelis does not return, then overall looking at the Arizona roster, they needed an infusion of talent, and that's what Tommy Lloyd has done. Because say what you want about Caleb Love, he is a guy that has so much polarizing opinions by many people around the country based on his play. Some people think that Caleb Love's a really talented player and that he has an NBA future still, and then other people think that Caleb Love is a ball-dominant player that does not share the ball with his teammates and he takes bad shots and he gets lucky and makes some of them. Both of those arguments are kind of true. I think Caleb Love's somewhere in the middle. I think he possibly could be a player that goes to the NBA, but he's going to have to settle it down and find a way to be on a basketball team. And since he's going to Arizona, share the ball with his teammates, because if he does not, Arizona could really struggle next season and actually be a worse team for adding Caleb Love. But if Caleb Love meshes with the roster, is not a ball-dominant player, and allows the starting point guard for Arizona, which will be Colin Boswell, a really talented player in his own right, that I think will be much better now that he will have the reins of the offense with Kirk Creesa transferring to West Virginia. I feel like if Colin Boswell does a really good job handling the basketball this season and can get Caleb Love the ball in his spots and Caleb Love takes better shots, I think Caleb Love could be a great player because of the fact that when he was at North Carolina the season before, when they went all the way to the national title game, Caleb Love shot around 35% from three. He's a guy that can make shots, but this past season, since Carolina was really struggling, he only shot 30% from three and a high volume of attempts. He took a lot of bad shots, and he's also an 81% free throw shooter, so it shows you he can shoot the ball. He can get to the rim at will. He's a guy that can drive downhill all day long if he wants to, but for whatever reason, Caleb Love does not choose to drive to the paint at times in games when he could do it almost every single play, get to the line probably 10 to 15 times per game, put the refs in a situation to call a foul. That's the smartest thing to do, especially when you're struggling from three. But that's not what Caleb Love did this past year. He took way too many jump shots. He's a great free throw shooter. He can get to the rim at will. He is a guy that has NBA talent. He was a former 5-star recruit, but Caleb Love is going to have to make sure that this stop works out for him at Arizona, because if Caleb Love does not have success with Arizona, his NBA future is probably probably going to be in doubt, and he more than likely will not make the NBA or won't stick around in it for very long. If he improves at Arizona and allows Tommy Lloyd to coach him up around with the rest of the players that Arizona has, there's a chance Caleb Love could be on a great team that probably is the favorite to win the Pac-12 at this point. Yes, USC's got Bronny James, and they've got Isaiah Collier. They've got some great players on that team. I think they definitely are in the potential race to win the Pac-12 next season. UCLA might take a bit of a step back next year, but Arizona's looking really good for next season. If they can get Azuolas Tubelis back, that would be insane. Again, not looking likely that he will return, but Oumar Ballo's back. He's a fantastic center, and Caleb Love's used to playing with fantastic centers with Armando Bacot at North Carolina. So I do think that Caleb Love really wanted to play for a team with a great center. He did go to Michigan when they still had Hunter Dickinson on the team. When Hunter Dickinson entered the transfer portal, Caleb Love shipped out, which is another reason why people think maybe it wasn't academics. Maybe it was. Who knows? But still, Caleb Love benefits when he has a really good center next to him. Oumar Ballo, maybe he's not Armando Bacot, but he's still a really dominant player. Had a great season last year in the Pac-12. Should have a great season yet again. And then you look at the fact Tommy Lloyd wasn't done there. He's brought in Jaden Bradley, the former Alabama guard that was a former McDonald's All-American as well. So he's a really talented player in his own right. Had some struggles this past season, find his way. So if Caleb Love can share the backcourt with Jaden Bradley, I feel like both players can showcase their talent to the best of their ability for the Wildcats next season. You could have a starting lineup potentially of Colin Boswell, then Caleb Love, Jaden Bradley, and then Pell Larson, who is returning as well for the Arizona Wildcats, a really talented player from this past season. He decided to spurn the NBA draft, and then Oumar Ballo. You could also go with Keyshawn Johnson at the 4, the transfer portal forward from San Diego State. He's a really talented player that did not get to showcase his offensive capabilities with the Aztecs this past year because of the fact San Diego State was such a defensive team, and they had a lot of players on the roster that were better scorers than Keyshawn Johnson. Maybe Keyshawn Johnson can improve at Arizona on the offensive end. He could be at the 4 with Oumar Ballo at the 5, and maybe if you don't want to have Jaden Bradley start, you could have Pell Larson starting at the 3, Caleb Love at the 2, Colin Boswell at the 1, and bring Jaden Bradley off the bench, but make sure he plays a lot more than he did at Alabama because that is why Jaden Bradley is transferring to Arizona. It's a lot of talent, but it's going to be a lot of players that want to succeed and they want to showcase their talent. So Tommy Lloyd is going to have to make sure all those players get touches or it could fall apart. But I do think that Tommy Lloyd is equipped to do a really solid job with his roster. He's gotten a lot of players from a lot of different backgrounds, and Caleb Love, Jaden Bradley, all these different players, they are definitely guys that you're going to have to work with to be able to help them succeed at the highest level, and I think Tommy Lloyd is the right coach to do that. You also have KJ Lewis coming as a 4-star recruit for Arizona. I think he can learn off the bench this season. And Matijas Krivas, he's a 7'2" center that could be dominant for Arizona in the future if he learns behind Oumar Ballo and eventually gets to start in a couple years. Arizona's roster is looking really good for next season. I thought that they were potentially the favorite to win the Pac-12 already, but getting Caleb Love allows Arizona to be the most talented team in the conference, more than likely, unless you are a believer that Bronny James and Isaiah Collier is the more talented duo and that USC has a better roster than Arizona. But I do think the Wildcats are the most talented roster. I think Tommy Lloyd's done a fantastic job with the Wildcats. The one thing Tommy Lloyd has to do is get Arizona far in the NCAA tournament. And another underrated thing about Caleb Love, he's had success in the NCAA tournament. He took North Carolina all the way to the national championship game. Yes, North Carolina missed the NCAA tournament this past year, but Caleb Love's a talented player. And if he can get it all together for Arizona next season and mesh with the rest of the roster that they have, a lot of the players, that's going to be really interesting to see if they can all work together and succeed next year for Arizona. But if they can, the Wildcats could be a great basketball team next year, potentially the best team in the Pac-12, and could win the Pac-12 next year and make a deep NCAA tournament run for the first time with Tommy Lloyd at head coach for Arizona. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about Caleb Love finally settling down and transferring to the Arizona Wildcats, and whether you think it will be his final stop in college basketball, and if you think Caleb Love can have a lot of success for the Wildcats next year, and how good of a job you think Tommy Lloyd is doing with the Arizona Wildcats. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.